All right, it's your boy Spank Dog, aka Puffinstein at YouTube. Like, comment, share, subscribe. You already know. Let's get right into it. All right, so today we're gonna be covering some strange stories, and we're gonna get it shaken quickly. All right, here we go.
A part of Project Bluebeam, or this is one of the biggest grifts known to man, or probably both. More than likely both, they make some easy cash while being part of a psyop. Now, I have spoken about this company once before, Reflect Orbital. Back then, they were spitballing, coming up with the idea about putting mirrors up into the Earth's atmosphere in order to sell sunlight to people. Yes, it's an absolutely bonkers idea, crazy idea, and it is a real company. But now it looks like they are full steam ahead and ready to go.
Not the moon, but a 60-foot wide mirror bouncing sunlight to the dark side of the planet. Space startup Reflect Orbital is hoping to launch 50,000 of these mirrors into orbit.
We are working on delivering sunlight on demand.
You hear this, right? They're talking about it being nighttime, and they have mirrors in the sky, in space, whatever, and the sunlight is not, it hasn't sundown hasn't arrived up in space. There's nothing blocking the sun up there, and they're gonna, in the nighttime, if you need sunlight, they're gonna reflect it down with satellite mirrors
with space technology.
That's CEO Ben Nowak, who wants the FCC to let his company launch its first prototype satellite as soon as this summer.
Our first satellites will be able to deliver a full moon of brightness.
Charge $5,000 an hour to get a single mirror fanned out and pointed at the customer's target.
$5,000 an hour. That's crazy. And I don't know if it's something that's okay. There was night and day was created most likely for a reason, and what they're doing is unnatural. Now, I'm not saying it can't be utilized for something important, or it wouldn't save the day at times, but I just don't know. It's like they just keep crossing lines, and I love technology, but that doesn't mean that everything regarding technology is okay.
Also be able to light up farms. We'll also be able to light up farms.
Reading this news article from UA.news, the American company Reflect Orbital plans to launch a network of orbital reflectors that will allow customers to order sunlight to a specific location using a mobile app. Before, when I spoke about this company, they were just going to do this in California, but continue to read the article. It says the startup's technical plan is impressive in its scale. They plan to launch up to...
It isn't bugged out that we've reached a point in 2026 where they have mirrors in space and they can bring the sun down to Earth, even if it's 2 or 3 in the morning. Now, I know a lot of people out there get freaked out by it, and there's some people out there that don't care. Me, I'm the person that's somewhere in the middle. I'm just looking at it like, is this kosher? You know what I'm saying? And I also came up, listen, my pops owned a video game store. We're talking about me being 4 years old and them putting me on a crate so I could climb up on the crate and I could see Asteroids, the video game, or Centipede, or Miss Pac-Man, Mario Brothers. And yeah, so and then the computers came out. My pops got me a Tandy 1000. He bought me a computer right before the real computers started hitting, but I was still grateful. He dropped like a stack on getting me a computer just to touch prematurely right before the internet and better computers started dropping. So I do love technology, but in the nighttime, making it where there's sun, I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know if that could have a detriment to society, to nature.
50,000 mirrors with diameters ranging from 20 to 50 meters into orbit. These structures will form a belt around the Earth, capable of directing a beam of light to specific points at the user's request. So basically, they're just going to go ahead and put mirrors up in the sky in different locations of the Earth. But
see, it wasn't it's not in space. That's a air balloon. So that means that it's gonna be in the regular skies. It's not gonna be in all the way up in space. But when they had the drones over Jersey and the drones over Long Island, I figured it was a technology thing or it was something that the government knew about. I never thought it was UABs or UFOs. There are things in the sky that are unexplainable, but you got to remember they're projecting a lot of things now. There's things that project. There's projectors that are supposed to replicate the sun. So they're trying to make people believe something's in the sky when there's nothing in the sky.
Here's what really stood out to me because they did not say this before. So who's going to be the consumer? I really can't picture any normal person buying this, but it goes on to say, in terms of intensity, the beam of light will be comparable to a full moon, which could be useful for the agriculture sector, solar farms, or military purposes. Where have I heard that before? Mirrors being used for military purposes. Oh, that's right. This article right here, that's over 26 years old, bring down the wrath of God on evil men. I have spoken about this article numerous times before because this,
I believe in God, and there's people that are even more, vocal about their belief in God, and I'm pretty sure that they aren't cool. Well, a lot of people aren't cool with this. There's other people that, have religion that they're saying, I don't know if this is bad or if this is good. Some people ain't quick to say they know. You know what I'm saying?
this is them admitting that they were going to do something like Project Bluebeam because they were going to have people in Baghdad hear the voice of Allah to command them to storm the palace and take out Saddam. But listen to this part right here where it says the Baghdad plan involved projecting a giant hologram over Iraq. This kind of projection requires a mirror behind it, and the scale of the project dictated a mirror several miles across up in space or up in the sky. Orbital mirrors have to be extremely lightweight, so the construction is based around a very thin sheet of metallized plastic, which are mylar mirrors, the same type of mirrors that this company is going to use. It is folded for launch. Once it is in orbit, it unfurls itself like a giant umbrella. And I wonder if this is what they're really launching up there. So
That's the question. Are they really up there so they can help people out down here when sunlight is needed and there isn't any? Or are they up there using that as an excuse to set up something that's real bad? You know what I'm saying? Something that isn't cool. That's very not cool.
far, the largest mirror has been 30 meters wide, but the present version are too small to produce a convincing image at ground level. And if they're talking about this back then, they have come a long way with this technology. Matter of fact, they go on to say that it wasn't the technology that stopped them. They just did not know what Allah looked like. Because when this was presented
It might be in space. 'Cause before they showed weather balloons with mirrors. Now they're showing that looks like a satellite to me, like a mirror satellite.
to the higher people, they didn't laugh it off. They said, okay, this is great, but what does Allah look like? Because there were no known images of Allah. So if they were planning to do that back then with mirrors and voice to skull technologies and all these other type of technologies, what makes you think they wouldn't do that today with aliens?
Big shout out to Minutes of Horror too. Let me hit him with his light real quick. There we go. Let's get it back cracking.
And all other types of things. But outside of Project Bluebeam, if this is actually what they're doing, hitting certain
That's another thing too, that you hear Project Bluebeam a lot right now. And the whole believing if there's aliens or not believing if there's aliens, that's what it centers around.
locations with false light, imagine all the wildlife, the nocturnal animals that thrive off natural moonlight, off natural darkness, what that's going to do to them. But they don't care. They don't care about anything being natural anymore. The sun doesn't even look
That's what I was saying about nature.
natural or feel natural anymore. With everything they're spraying in the skies as well, they are terraforming this earth for something.
Yes, he said terraforming this earth. Terraform, I believe, has to do with how they're spraying aerosol in the sky to reflect the light in hopes to lower global warming. They've released mosquitoes And I'll say allegedly just because I'm not certain if I if it was something that was alleged or something that was factual. I believe it's factual, but like I said, allegedly, they're spraying the aerosol to reflect the light in hopes to combat global warming. At least that's what they say it's for. The mosquitoes, apparently they released mosquitoes. Forget exactly what the reason was for that. Um and there's other things going on, allegedly.
Something else. Here is the CEO talking about it in a recent speech on March 26th, and again, he brings up the military.
We are building a constellation of satellites to reflect sunlight onto the dark side of the Earth. Each one of these little satellites is reflecting sunlight to a customer around the world. We want to make it as easy as possible for people. So you can imagine using an app and bringing sunlight over to your exact location, wherever you are, in under 30 seconds at the touch of a button. All we have to do is rotate satellites and reflect the sunlight that's passing by us in space. We
And pay $5,000 an hour.
saw applications from Indiana and India both complaining about the same thing. Our street lighting infrastructure is not very good. I don't feel safe walking home at night. I want some sunlight. We also heard a lot of people asking
For $5,000 an hour.
for sunlight for emergency response applications. You can imagine being in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, somebody has an emergency, they fall overboard, you have to wait a couple hours for a helicopter to show up and provide some light. Well, we can do the same thing a lot faster.
There's certain instances where the sunlight would be not only warranted, it would be worth the money. But those would be in extreme circumstances. It's not something that I think that I'm even sure should be done at all. But if it was something that people considered okay, then it would only be if somebody's life was on the line, a lot of people's lives was on the line. And like I said, something very extreme.
All you have to do is hit a button on either a phone or a satellite connected device, and we can get you sunlight immediately. You can also use it for building things, no matter where you are. You could be at the North Pole, you could be right near a small town. You don't have to bring anything on a truck. You just hit a button and you can get some light from space. And it's not very expensive. It's a couple $1,000s an hour, and that's about it. And you can use it for as long as you want. So you can imagine doing this anywhere. And for very large projects, this can be a big game changer. If you have to set up, dozens of lighting towers and drag those out, this could be a lot simpler for you. We also got a lot of people interested in using this for more critical operations. Obviously, you can imagine using this for military operations, and there's a number of applications there as well that I won't get into today.
But here's something interesting. Is this guy and this company the actual creators behind this, or are they just the face? Are they just the people they put out in the front? Because here's an interesting article from NASA going all the way back to 1982. Illumination from space with orbiting solar reflector spacecraft. Studies performed at
This is all the way back in 1982. He's about to read from the beginning. Studies performed at the Langley Research Center.
The Langley Research Center have identified several potentially beneficial applications of illumination from space that can be accomplished with 2 to 40 1-kilometer solar reflector spacecraft. Nighttime space shuttle operations can be illuminated to 11 lux, or 77 full moons, with a light beam 100 meters in diameter with 2 solar reflectors in 6-hour orbits. A constellation of 16 solar reflectors in geosynchronous Earth orbit can illuminate to 56 full moons, an area approximately 333 kilometers in diameter. This capability could enable the illumination of heavily populated industrialized areas, such as the northeastern United States, all night long.
If any of you people could think of a literal reason why this would be necessary, drop a comment.
So back then, they were going to go ahead and put craft up in the sky to do something like this, but I guess eventually they found that Mylar mirrors work a lot better. So again, when it comes to something like this, I just think that this man is the face, the front man, and there's higher players involved. Maybe all these fireballs and these very loud booms we're hearing is them testing the imaging and the sounds of these technologies. Who really knows? But yesterday,
there's a lot of things going on in the sky that are questionable, and I would definitely like to know what those flying squid things are, because there's things that look like they have tentacles, and they've been spotted many times. They were over the LA fires. So yeah, I would like to know what the hell those are. People thought they were Chinese balloons for a second.
giant fireball was spotted streaking across the mid-Atlantic states to the point one person was skeptical of what they saw and thought it was a missile. Between 3 and 4 p.m. yesterday, nearly 200 people submitted sighting reports to the American Meteor Society after seeing this. People in New Jersey also took to Facebook to describe hearing very loud booms that shook some homes around the same time they saw this quote-unquote fireball in the area. And again, the article ends with a skeptic saw it somewhere in New York and thought at first it might have been a missile. This thing does look pretty unique. I mean, look how this thing's moving. It doesn't look like it's moving like a normal,
That's not no comment.
again, quote unquote meteor or fireball.
Yeah.
I've never
Hold on 1 second, people. Ugh.
seen a fireball or a meteor gain altitude as they are in the Earth's atmosphere and then start to rapidly descend. But moving on, is somebody out there releasing a bunch of ticks because we have
Yo, I can't stand ticks. I'm scared of them. You know, I don't even know if I've ever encountered one or not, you know. But they scare me because they can give you Lyme disease. There are actually ticks that carry something that gives you an allergy to meat. And if you eat meat after you're bitten by that tick, you can die. I'm thinking it's while you're having the reaction, or I don't know if it's a lifetime reaction, but you literally get bit by that tick, and if you eat meat afterwards, you can die, or I don't know if it's certain if you die or not. He's gonna elaborate.
multiple states saying they are seeing an explosion of tick sightings this early, and it's unheard of.
You know what it is? You can't see bugs all the time. That's why they scare me like that, because you don't even know when there's one on you at times. And if it's one that can poison you, I've been bit by a spider. I've had a 4-day hospital stay in the hospital because I got bit by a spider. You know, I ended up in just a matter of hours, my toe blew up like a handball. You know, it was like this big, filled with, like, you know, I don't want to be gross about it, but you know, it was infected. So I go, the doctor, I'm like, yo, doc, I don't gotta get my leg, my foot cut off or nothing like that. He said, not, you know, as long as you let us take care of this, you should be good. So I'm like, go ahead. So when he looks at it, the first thing he says is spider bite. And that's the last thing he said regarding the diagnosis. You know, from what he saw, he said spider bite, no doubt about it. And then they proceed to, you know, hit me with the numbing needles and proceed to, you know, remove what's doesn't belong inside my toe, and they get it to come out, and then they gotta put packing, you know, and then they repeated the procedure. It makes you scream. It's horrible. 4 days in the hospital. I got cut open twice and went through the procedure that makes you scream. You know, for the dude that don't scream while that's happening, or you know, that's the second time I braced myself on the bars of the hospital bed, the gurney, I think it's called. And I knew what was coming because they had just did it to me 2 days before. They're like, we, you know, it looks good, but we think we're gonna have to drain it again. I'm like, that means the numbing needles? They're like, yeah. I'm like, oh man. So when they came the second time, I grabbed under the two bars and I said, go ahead, do what you got to do. And I don't think I screamed that time. The first time I definitely screamed. The second time, I think I just braced myself. And while they hit it with the needles, because those needles are crazy, I'm not even going to explain it. But you want to scream, you know. But I was just like, oh. And then, you know, for the length of time it took, I was groaning, almost screaming. And then it was over, thank God. That's some of the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. You know, sometimes when they got to numb the area, they got to use the needles. But while the needles are in place, they, you know, relocate it without pulling it out. And, yo, that it hurts.
I wouldn't doubt that one bit, given the previous history of certain insects being released on the public those also including ticks. Connecticut being one of those states where they are seeing this rise of ticks.
See that they're believed, it's alleged that the ticks are genetically modified. They're not natural. The ones that cause the allergic reaction to eating meat, the deadly allergic reaction to eating meat.
That they have never seen before. Reading this article from News 12 New Jersey, this doctor was quoted as saying, "Since yesterday morning, our laboratory has received over 140 tick submissions. This is unheard of, that they don't see this kind of surge in early April. Now, ticks do appear between March and April, but the surge that they are seeing is usually reserved between June through August." The doctor was quoted as saying, "It does appear that tick activity has picked up and is in full swing, so to speak. What's more, over 40% of black-legged deer tick submissions from the past few weeks tested positive for the bacteria that cause Lyme's." He said 12 to 15% were.
There you go, Lyme disease, man. That's just no joke. You don't want that. You know what I'm saying? Keep the ticks away from me, man. Please do whatever you got to do to keep the ticks away from me. I don't mess with them. They're very dangerous. The ones that they're talking about, it just said, he literally just said that deer tick submissions from the past few weeks tested positive for the bacteria that cause Lyme disease. Yo, keep them away from me, bro.
Were found to have pathogens linked to other illnesses. But here's the catch, because this also plays into the whole having people scared to eat meat. Because the article goes on to say that all these ticks are capable of transmitting their own strands of diseases. In some cases, they can trigger conditions such as alpha-gal syndrome, a red meat allergy that can cause severe reactions, anywhere from hives to asphyxiation. That is why I believe somebody is behind the spread of these ticks. Take, for example, this other article that
I don't sleep neither. You heard him say he thinks that there's a chance somebody's responsible. So do I. I believe that there's a chance somebody's responsible.
Came out on April 2nd. Ticks that cause a rare, dangerous red meat allergy are spreading. What precautions can you take? A couple years ago, this alpha-gal syndrome was very, very rare and only came out of Texas from a tick known as a Lone Star tick. But now, as of recent, it is everywhere. And surprise, surprise, what used to be something that was in one part of the United States is now making its way also into Canada. There was a story that happened last year where a man in New Jersey, he was camping, he ate a burger, and then he started having an allergic reaction, and then he passed away. And I said in that video I made about that story, we're going to hear many more of these cases to come out to scare people away from eating meat, which seems like this is definitely the path they plan to go, because the NIH came out and said that up to 450,000 Americans may be living with the syndrome, according to a Stony Brook University report. Many are unaware that.
That's another thing. You could have gotten bit and you don't even know that you have the syndrome.
They have it until that first allergic reaction. So there's going to be
and it is long lasting. So you could get bit by a tick, eat a hamburger like a month later maybe, and pass away. I'm not certain if that's exactly how it goes, but something to that effect. The man passed from the red meat allergy.
Explosion of these cases. There's already an explosion of ticks and nobody knows why. But if you go back to articles like these, you kind of put the puzzle pieces together, like this one back in August of 2025. Professors ask if meat allergy ticks should be set loose to save the earth. The article goes on to say that two bioethics professors at Western Michigan University.
All right, let me explain this to you guys, because I looked this up. At first, I didn't understand. The reason that they would want to eliminate the consumption of red meat is because, well, not even, I don't think it's just, I don't know if it's poultry and pork included, but it's responsible for 15% of the gas emissions on the planet, I believe. And if they made it where people couldn't eat meat, 15% of the problem with the carbon emissions or the gas emissions would be fixed. So that seems like the driving force. That seems like the driving force behind the tick that gives off the red meat allergy.
University are exploring a controversial thought experiment. Should spreading a debilitating meat allergy be morally required if eating meat is considered wrong? Now,
these guys, they say that that it's not morally wrong. What do you mean it's not morally wrong to give somebody a get bit by a tick and him die from a meat allergy because he ate a burger, which is his choice? Listen to this. It's crazy. These guys are kooky to say that it's not morally a problem. Of course, it's morally a problem. First of all, there's a chance that that man died because of the ticks that they released, allegedly.
this did get a lot of backlash, but they went on to say that this is just a thought experiment, not an endorsement of spreading the algae causing ailment.
So
And
you
yet,
say,
as coincidence may have it, we're supposedly seeing an explosion of these meat
yeah,
algae ticks. They must have did some experimentations or playing around with this, because it goes on to say that these researchers in their paper said that the syndrome has no significant impact on human health, so long as nobody eats meat. In a normal world, a normal society where nothing shady is going on, where nothing's scripted, one would think that these two would have heavy focus and pressure on them when it comes to these explosion of tick cases. But no, it's just going to be swept under the rug because it was just a thought experiment. It's not like they're going to admit anything anyway. They even said in the paper that promoting alpha-gal syndrome is strongly pro tanto morally obligatory, meaning that it is required unless outweighed by a stronger moral reason against it. If Xing prevents the world from becoming a significantly worse place, doesn't violate anyone's rights, I don't know how spreading these and filling people up with allergies they've never had before doesn't violate anyone's rights, but it is what it is.
thank you. That's why, that's why this man is very smart. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. I don't even understand how the guys say that it's not a problem morally to give somebody for somebody to get bit by an insect that was genetically engineered, and then they eat a hamburger and pass. And these guys are literally saying it shouldn't be nothing wrong with it if the good outweighs the bad. That's some Thanos shit. That's some Watchmen shit. In Watchmen, the bad guy, he wants to take out a certain amount of people on the planet to restore order. And same thing with Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet. He wants to eliminate half of the universe to restore order. You don't get to make that decision, bro. It's really looking like something like that is gonna take place, where we're gonna have to. Anyway, I'll let you keep listening.
And promotes virtuous action or a character, then Xing is strongly pro tanto obligatory. Promoting tick-borne AGS satisfies each of these conditions. And I can see Bill Gates, among others, being behind something like this. Didn't he already release mosquitoes onto the public? There was also something very interesting being spread around social media, that farmers were finding boxes on their properties, and when
Did Bill Gates release mosquitoes on the public? Let's look it up. Did Bill Gates release mosquitoes? Did Bill Gates release mosquitoes on the public? Yes, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has funded projects that involve releasing mosquitoes, but these actions are part of scientific efforts to combat diseases like malaria, Zika, and dengue, rather than for malicious reasons, often suggested in conspiracy theories. See, I never said that he released them for the wrong reasons. I said he released them, and they just said that it's true. They said that he did it for the right reasons, but they're going on his word.
they would open these boxes up, they would be filled with ticks. Now, I don't know how true this is. There's been no video footage that I've seen of this as of yet. This is just something that's being spread around social media. But Snopes came out, and of course, they had to release the fact checkers from the toilets and sewers they reside in to come out and say that this is just a hoax. This is when I get.
They're saying that farmers were getting boxes of ticks, but there's no evidence to support that. And the website Snopes came out with an article, and I think sometimes when they end up covering something, that it ends up like some validity gets lent to it or something like that.
Get a little bit more suspicious. So apparently in late March 2026, social media users shared a claim that farmers reported finding boxes of ticks on their property. The rumor supposedly originated from a user whose account identified her as a holistic doctor named Sarah Outlaw. Outlaw shared a claim that in a video on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, receiving more than 10 million total views, the 5-second video showing horses in a field featured an on-screen caption reading, "Farmers are reporting boxes of ticks being found in fields. This should concern you." Now, again, I don't know if there's any
I mean, showing horses doesn't mean nothing. If there's no ticks in the video, it's just a statement.
truth to this, but it is true. There is a very suspicious rise of ticks that nobody has any answers for. And Snopes says they reached out to hundreds of Missouri officials, I'm sure, to ask whether they received any information regarding farmers finding boxes of ticks. As of writing this, no city or county officials confirmed any such reports. And more than 36 counties said that they had either received no reports of boxes of ticks or were unaware of any such activity. But I mean, it seems like anytime Snopes gets involved with something, whatever that something is, I think we should look a little bit more into that.
That's what I was telling you. When he brought up the fact that Snopes had did a report on it, it lends validity to the subject. I don't know why, but that's what he's inferring. So I guess he researched that when Snopes covers it, there's a chance it might be official.
But at the end of the day, it is the internet. Any claim can be made, whether it's true or false.
That's true.
So if you are from Missouri and you heard anything like this, or you do know a farmer you can talk to see if this happened to them, please do comment below. It's kind of interesting that the 2026 Economist magazine cover has multiple big jabs on the front. But with that being said, let's go ahead and see what other people are talking about. This video comes from Beauty Mercs.
What did he say? Beauty Mercs? I couldn't hear him. It sounded like I don't know. I couldn't hear the name.
Know that nearly 3,000 data centers are currently under construction or planned across the United States as of late 2025. That's adding to the 4,000 already operational. This is data centers under construction by state as of.
Yo, listen, man. They're farming data. They're farming data like you wouldn't believe. Like it's World of Warcraft. Like it's Final Fantasy. Like it's Maple Story. Like they're farming data. They want your data. They're leveling up. And I don't know why they will want to know. I mean, I guess they can put the pieces together to, you know, determine how people move throughout the day, you know, what their preferences are, you know, what to market to them. But what they're going to reveal right now is that there are a lot of data farms.
2026. If you can't tell, Texas and Virginia lead the nation in development. To give you a better visual of how insane this is, these are data centers under construction state by state. Why do you need 140 data centers in Texas? Why do you need 136 in Virginia? Why do you need 56 in Georgia? Then you take into consideration the locations of where these data centers are being placed. Definitely not areas where high levels of poverty exist or anything. If it's not already obvious after taking all of this in that data centers are clearly not needed in an environment that's already being destroyed, provide you with valid reasons as to why AI should cease to exist. Let me just put it into perspective for you, okay? In case it wasn't already obvious, I made some notes.
Some people can't stand AI, but, you know, for me, I think all technology is important, but you know, it can't be where we, you know, damage Mother Earth and we're like, oh, it can cure a disease. You know, you can't trade that one for the other. You understand? Like, it's got to come to a point where enough is enough. You know, I heard Jim Carrey say the other day that he's never heard an actor say, and this was a while ago, I have enough, I am enough, and I've done enough. You know, and that's gangster what he said, you know what I'm saying? And you know, I actually understood it to the point where I feel like I've done enough, I have enough, and I am enough. You know, and a lot of people, I hope they see this and say the same thing to themselves. You know, and it's true. You know, for me, it's true. I'm happy.
Data centers utilize about 3% of global electricity, a figure predicted to exceed 10% by 2030. They run 24/7, people, driving up regional electricity bills and straining power grids. Data centers use millions of gallons of water daily for cooling, frequently depleting local water supplies and affecting communities' drinking water and agriculture. This has been proven on numerous occasions, by the way. City data centers are powered by fossil fuels, contributing heavily to what? With some projections showing AI data centers causing emissions equivalent to adding millions of cars to the road. Please tell me again why all of this is necessary. Oh, wait, it's not.
Can somebody tell me what these AI data centers are for? I get that they are meant to power AI, but we keep hearing that we are in an AI bubble, that they're not profitable, they're not making any money.
We got to go back in time a little bit, people. We got to go back to being organic somewhat. Our quest to find magic in technology and, you know, bigger buildings, further space exploration, industrialization, it's been the downfall of mankind. You know, I don't know to what degree, you know, the planet is, you know, hurt, but still, like, when is it enough? You know, even like, you know, I don't have any problem with a person who's wealthy. I just asked the question, like, when is a certain amount of cars enough? When is a certain amount of properties enough? You know, when do you eventually say, yo, that man doesn't have nothing? Let me help him out. Let me make that man go from having nothing to having something, especially when you're that filthy rich.
Money, yet they're spending billions and billions of dollars taking all this land and resources. The people that live next to these data centers, their bills are skyrocketing. Yet, what is the true purpose behind these data centers? What is the data going in them? Because I just cannot imagine these people spending billions of dollars knowing they're not getting any money out of it. It just doesn't calculate to me. But talking about data and collecting data, this next video from Inspector Preston is absolutely wild.
Something
and he wants
happened
people to
last
spread the
week
word on it.
that sent shockwaves through the entire inspection community. I'm going to break.
I don't remember this part exactly, but he says something important, I believe.
A story that nobody else has wanted to cover or talk about, but there is something very big going on in my profession that affects almost every homeowner in this country. And this includes anybody buying a home, selling a home, realtors. This all affects you. Right now, right this minute, as I'm talking to you, there is a corporate takeover of all of the software that runs home inspection companies. And I'm going to explain why.
It's about data collection. I remember.
It matters to you. On some level, I think all of us know that these corporations are buying up access to our data. But last year, something happened that should have sent alarm bells through the entire profession. And honestly, we all should have been talking to our clients about this. You see, there are very large corporations buying up the software that we use to do our inspections, that we write reports with. Now, you probably know that home inspectors, we are legally required to keep all of our data and findings confidential between me and you, the client, and nobody else. I can't even share a report with the client's realtor without the client's permission.
Getting to the point where them collecting data from us isn't enough. They're going to people whose jobs were to collect tons of data from tons of people, and they're buying the companies.
That's how legally prohibitive it is. We're supposed to protect your data. Now think about this for a second. If there's a large corporation that is partnered with or owns other companies like insurance companies, lending institutions, home warranty programs, home security systems, and they buy a home inspection software company,
see,
what do you think they're going to do with your data? Now, there are some big names out there. There's a company called Porch who owns several software companies. They own ISN, which is a scheduling software. They own Home Inspector Pro. They have their own inspection software, and it is very largely and widely known that they also use this data, and they'll say that it's anonymized or de-identified, but they use this data to actually market and sell their products to our customers. Now, a couple of years ago, Porch reached out to me. I was in talk.
Right now, I was saying, but how do you know that? Here we go.
For them about maybe getting involved with their software and helping them develop it. And I told them, You have to make a public pledge, something that's legally defensible, that you are never going to sell or share the user data with anybody else in order for
And if he's telling the truth, he's a very honorable person.
me to be involved. And the discussions and the talks ended immediately, and I've never heard from him again. All right, well, that's fine because I don't actually use any of Porch's products. So I've been using a software company called Spectora, and I've been using them since 2021. And Spectora is the largest software company in our space. Most home inspectors use Spectora. Okay, now Spectora was owned by two brothers, Kevin and Mike Wagstaff. And forever and a day, they promised all of us home inspectors, we are never going to sell your data. All right, but last year, Kevin and Mike sold out. And the number that we've heard is anything from $44 million up to $80 million. But they got tens of millions of dollars and essentially, as we understand it, have walked away from the company. All right, well, who bought Spectora? Who owns Spectora now? Well, a company called Radian Capital acquired the company from Mike and Kevin. And Radian Capital is a big corporation, and they got their fingers in a whole bunch of other software. Here you will see Radian Capital has their fingers in a lot of companies. Now, this is where I tell you how it could affect you. Last year, I had two problems where clients called me up and actually accused me of selling their data or sharing their data.
This is when he tells you that him thinking that they sold the data didn't just come from nowhere.
The first client was somebody who had an underground oil tank buried at their house, and nobody ever knew about it. Actually, even the people that owned the home didn't know. I found the lines coming through the foundation, put it in the report that there's possibly an underground tank. Something happened with my client's lender, who then either jacked up or dropped them and said they weren't going to loan them the money for the house. I don't remember exactly what it was, but they accused me of sharing that data or selling that data to their lender. I have no idea how that happened because I would never sell or share data from any of my clients, but I had my suspicions. Now, I can't say for sure that it was Spectora that sold or shared my data, but I also can't say they didn't. Then September of 2025, I had a second client who called me up and was very angry with me and said, "How dare you share my data with my insurance company?" I had no idea what they were talking about. They said our insurance company just jacked up our insurance rates because they believed there to be asbestos inside of our house, asbestos insulation. And Preston, you are the only person that knew this, and you're supposed to keep our data confidential. I did not share their data with anybody, but now this is the second time that I got accused of that. Of course, I'm going to be suspicious.
It's to the point where they want to know your email, your other email, how you move when you're outside, how you move when you're inside, what you use, what was it? Oh, whether you have a tank under your house, with the asbestos thing, I didn't really get, you need to get that fixed before you get sick, but still, it was information they weren't privy to, and they ended up getting it.
So if you're like me and you start connecting dots, something happened last week that sent shockwaves through the entire inspection community. Spectora announced that in our dashboard, next to our reports that we deliver to our clients, they're going to put an advertisement or a button that's going to upsell our clients into their products through their partner, which is a company called Fixel. So Spectora apparently is partnered with or owns Fixel, and Fixel sells insurance and home warranties and home security systems. Sound familiar? So now everybody was angry and saying, "How dare you? You're not going to hijack my clients to sell them your products. What right do you have to do that?" And Spectora said, "We're doing it whether you like it or not." And all of a sudden, all these dots got connected. When a giant corporation buys a little software company with 7,000 users, you kind of have to ask yourself why. Our subscription's like $100 a month. You don't pay 40 or 80 or $100 million or whatever you're paying for these software companies to get a $100 subscription. That doesn't make any sense. Mining the data makes a lot of sense. Now imagine you hire me as a home inspector and I do a home inspection for you. I deliver a report and the data somehow gets used against you. Somebody cancels your loan, jacks up your rate, jacks up your insurance policy, or you start getting marketing for home warranty systems and home insurance and everything else that they sell. It's just plain wrong.
This is something we're going to see in multiple industries, especially the healthcare industry, when people gave all their data over to Ancestry.com and other genealogy sites. They didn't read the fine print that they can go ahead and give your data to anybody. So data, which is a very hot commodity right now, is being given away to others without people knowing, and it's impacting them in so many different ways.
All right, I'm gonna stop it here, man. Big shout out to Minister Farber. Yeah, man. Listen, man. It's not I'm not shocked that people that are in higher positions, that are chasing money, that are powerful through politics or through wealth, that they do things that are up to no good, like this, data mining no matter what the cost, you know what I'm saying? And it's just you seeing people who are rich and powerful not caring about people. You know what I'm saying? Let me full screen real quick so I can say my piece. It's your boy Spank Dog. I'm out of here. Much love, real love. I'll catch you guys later.